Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us on the T.R.O.N podcast. This is your host, Rashad Woods, and today I have a very special guest, an entrepreneur, best-selling author, motivational speaker, an all-around good guy, and success story from some very, very trying times in his life. Thank you, everyone, Mr. M. Curtis McCoy. Thank you for joining us.
Rashad, man, I am so glad to be on your show today. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you. I had a chance to look at your background, the success you've had, the thousands of people you've helped, you know, the companies that you've built, but you also came from some very tough times in life. And I think people need to hear stories like that because when they're down, when they quote unquote hit that rock bottom, that's not the end point. And you came back from some very trying situations in life. Would you care to expand upon that for us, please?
You know, not to completely change the direction of this, but I get people all the time talking about, you know, I get podcast hosts where they're asking about the child abuse or that, you know, my dad handed me a pistol, told me to do the world a favor, or surviving brain cancer and all these crazy things. There's a lot of good stories that work real well to connect the audience and make them feel sorry for you. And, oh, look how good this guy's done now. But the real thing here to think about, though, is everybody goes through some kind of crap in their life. Doesn't matter whether it's child abuse, maybe you're being, you know, you've got a husband, wife, significant other cheating on you or whatever the train wreck is. You survive some kind of a medical issue. You've lost a loved one. But we all deal with junk that sucks in our life. The difference between winners and losers, though, winners, you know, losers use that as an excuse. Like, you know, I grew up, my dad doing coke and drinking and not a great example, but I could have used that as a excuse to go, my dad treated me like this and I turned out just fine. No, you turned out to be the same kind of loser that you grew up with the example of. So losers use that past or the struggles as a reason, you know, as an excuse. Winners use it as a reason to become something better. So that's what I try to focus on now is where are you going instead of, you know, looking back at the past. And this is the reason why I'm stuck.
Well, you know, so right now, I see you have and that's a great anecdote for people who are listening to focus on the positives rather than where you were at. I thought it was just a very inspiring story because it's amazing where you came from. That being said, you're a motivational speaker and you go around the country and you've been very successful as well as having the Amazon Fire Show, the host of Success, Motivation, and Inspiration. Would you care to give us a little insight about that?
Yeah, man, that's the big thing now with, so we took over Newswire Magazine back in 2018. You probably know Newswire launched in like 1997.
Absolutely.
So as I was running my telecom company, Newswire come up for sale and we ended up picking up Newswire. And then also from that, actually started out podcasting like you did. I had a super cheesy setup. I was living in the back of one of my retail cell phone stores. My parents lived, my mom and stepdad lived in the back of another store. I had, you know, it was rough times there, looked successful on the outside. And, you know, everybody thought we were crushing it, not realizing we're paying the employees real well, but that meant there was not enough money to have a house for myself or something. But so, I mean, we started out there with all that going on and then ended up as the business just exploded. We took Newswire Magazine, took over Newswire, launched the magazine, that little podcast where I had this, I mean, it was the cheesiest podcast you ever saw. I'm standing there in a thrift shop suit holding a microphone that was, couldn't afford anything to plug it into. So I'm recording my podcast on an Android phone, you know, a little cheesy tripod there, holding this microphone, standing in front of a cloth, trying to look like I was on stage or something. But nobody in the world looking at me, you know, seeing that going, I just look like some cheesy doofus giving success tips. Like, well, this is M. Curtis McCoy.
Right.
Trying to give these success tips, but again, just starting out and pushing through that. And then now as we got syndicated to Amazon Fire TV, so we actually host a show where I interview people kind of like you are. And then doing Newswire Magazine and really helping highlight authors, entrepreneurs, podcast hosts, folks who are really crushing it in life and business and get their story out, putting them on the 96-foot billboard in Times Square, New York. And, you know, just really sharing great stories of people who are on a good path up and helping folks.
So what is the one common denominator amongst all those successful people that you named that you've noticed or that you saw immediately in them that said, hey, no matter what industry you were in, this is the characteristic that was similar amongst all those people?
So every single one of them is outlook. And if you read my fourth book, I've interviewed everybody from a guy that owns a church and a private hospital, Nathan Schulhoff, the inventor of the MP3 player, an ex-convict who was a felon, multiple-time felon, had been caught on drug trafficking and I mean, tons of different crimes, had been in prison for years, got out, turned his life around. Now he's a very successful guy, launching software companies and just crushing it. But every single one of them, it's that same thing where you either use your past as an excuse or as a reason to become something better.
Right. So
I had a
when you go ahead, I'm sorry.
I had a friend the other day. I was out hosting an event in Texas, in Waco, Texas, and this guy was saying the difference between what he's noticing as he's flying around the country speaking to different groups. He said the difference between the conversations where people who are just getting by are talking about the past. Man, back in high school, I used to run, I did this, but, and they're always looking back at what they used to be. The people who are really kind of, the mid-level where you're like, hey, it's a classy neighbor down the street. They got a couple nice cars in the garage, got a nice house that they're making minimum payments on. But most of those people, when you're looking at somebody with a typical mid six-figure income, is they're talking about people. So, hey, did you know George just launched this new company? And so they're all talking about, instead of the past events, they're talking about people. He said the difference between that top percent who are absolutely crushing it is they're talking about ideas and things that they can achieve. So like past, current, or future, I guess the difference. Absolutely.
Right. It's crazy because I was listening for some writings from Tim Grover, Michael Jordan's trainer, late Kobe Bryant's trainer. Yeah. And, it's funny what he said. He's like, Michael was already the best basketball player in the world, and there was really nothing I was going to do to make him a better basketball player. So it was fine tuning what was already great in him to get him past the Detroit Pistons, to get him to persevere through certain things, because his will was already unbreakable. So you either have it in you or you don't, right? And I think that a characteristic of people who can be more forthcoming and thinking towards the future, such an example as yourself, where it didn't matter if you were in the back of your in a stock room with a cheesy tie. Some people would laugh at that. If you showed that to your friend, they'd be like, dude, what are you doing? But you had the vision that it didn't matter. I don't care what you think. I got this path that I'm on. And so when I looked at your history, you own pharmaceutical, you had a pharmaceutical company, and you had some laser clinics as well too. How did those come into fruition for you?
Yeah, so that's, again, the goal. You'll see, this is another thing with entrepreneurs who are really crushing it, who's maybe they've been super successful. You look at Elon Musk right now, started multiple company after company after company, and it's crazy stuff people don't think about doing. But the reason for that, I mean, and I am not comparing myself to Elon Musk. That dude is
right.
He probably loses more pocket change than I make in a year. So, but again, on that, the reason that I've been successful with, starting a telecommunications company that had over 250,000 customers a month hitting the website, we're on track to do $986 million a year in total revenue. And that's big numbers. Revenue sounds a whole lot better than profit. We were profit on that. It's very small, but so I'll say the revenue because it makes me sound like the big dog. But anybody doing almost $1 billion a year in total revenue is you're on the right track there.
Right.
The pharmaceutical, the 𝐲𝐞𝐭 company, had a Christian clothing company. You talked about the cosmetic medical laser clinic. Had a supplement company manufacturing, all kinds of different, manufacturing and shipping different, all kinds of supplements for gyms and stuff like that.
Right.
But everything that I ever did there was trying to figure out how to solve a problem rather than create a new market for something that, some kind of a new invention. It's really difficult to create a market for something that people don't need. But if you just find a problem that exists in the marketplace, you solve that. And you don't even have to be the cheapest guy, as long as you're the one that provides the best solution or you've got the best name. So you built the brand, really got it out there. Now, if people can find you, they can do business with you. So that's what I've done there, is just figure out what problems need solved, how to solve that effectively, and then really market the heck out of it and make it to where that's something that people know about and makes it easy to buy.
What's the old saying? Build a better mousetrap, right? So,
yep.
Isn't that the old? So, one thing that I've noticed doing this podcast, and I just started about 2.5 weeks ago, is every single person that I've interviewed that's been successful and has their niche and found their joy in life, they always want to share it with people. And I've noticed that you're in the big business of sharing your knowledge. I've seen, you're on Instagram, you're on X/Twitter for other people who don't know the name switched. You're doing multiple podcasts, and you're a highly sought after guest on podcasts. Your goal to give back, to inspire people, and I've looked at some of the speeches that people gave and they raved about you. Was that part of, did it come organically while you were successful at what you were doing and people just naturally gravitated towards you? And then you said, okay, well, I'll start sharing this with people.
The way that actually happened is you may have, I mean, it looks like you've done more research on me than you probably know more about me than my fiance does. I appreciate
I was
that.
never going to come on here and not do my homework. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's a disservice to your time.
That's awesome. And you know what? That's a huge thing that separates. I'm doing as many as 6 podcast interviews a day right now. I've done 180 podcasts in 90 days. I think you're number 182. The difference, though, you would not believe how many I get on where the guys starting a podcast. Maybe they're 80 episodes in and haven't monetized. They're just trying to figure out how to keep going. But they get on. They go, "Hey, so today we've got M. Curtis. Did I call you? Is it Curtis or M. Curtis or McCurtis or?"
Oh my gosh!
And so, not doing their research. And then they'll say, "Hey, so introduce yourself. Why are we here? What are we talking about today?" So that's the ones that never really take off. The guys that do like you are, where you're really doing the research and you've got a good conversation, good questions. You're coming up with relevant questions that make your guest look like an expert. That helps both of you. So I appreciate you putting in that work.
Absolutely, thank you.
Now tell me your question there again.
Yeah, just basically, how did you get into the sharing of success? Because every single person that I've interviewed has been like, hey, I got to share this with the rest of the world, or, an audience that's willing to listen if they want to follow the path that I've done.
You see this with a lot of successful podcast guests is we start out just trying to sharing benefit, sharing value, trying to solve problems for people. Just like this event that I just spoke out in Waco, Texas last week, just teaching people on earned media. My entire business with Newswire Magazine and Amazon Fire TV is all our paid media. So that means, we're working with people who have done well enough to where now they're spending money on the advertising. And when they get more exposure, they bring more traffic.
Yes.
But I speak all over the country, including on podcasts about earned media, helping people do things to try to figure out how to, without spending anything, how to get out there, get your name out there, make it to where people know, like, and trust you. So that in the future, when they get their business successful enough, now they can advertise with the guy that just taught them that. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it's not completely selfish. I get people all the time that are like, "Oh my gosh, you're spending your whole life doing all this, helping people with their brand. And there's money in that for me. I wouldn't, I see that in the future.
No question.
Wouldn't be, I wouldn't be doing it for, I love helping
a lot
people.
of time.
It's nice to be able to get paid for it in the future,
Of course. You're not, I'm sure you have there's only so much you can do for free before you have to, your time is worth money. And I think sometimes people get bashful about saying that, right? Or they shy away from that. One question that I did have was that for somebody who has hesitations in starting out, I don't have the time, my kids monopolize it, I'm married, I don't really know what I want to do. What's your advice to somebody who's trying to find that path to kick off to do something?
This is probably not what you're expecting. I would say if you're not in a position where you can sacrifice the time, for me, building Bestseller, that was 80 to 100 hours plus a week for 10 years straight. I had no friends, no family, I lived in the back of one of my stores. My mom and stepdad lived in the back of another store. We had a third store that it was, I was traveling back and forth to, had licensees all over the country. Some of my family members owned other stores that were licensees of Bestseller.
Right.
But the amount of sacrifice that goes into something like that, I told you, generating massive revenue numbers. If I was going back though, I'm in a position now where I've got a fiance. She's got a 7-year-old son that is just absolutely awesome. There is no way that I would start a company like that right now, trying to get in it and, start from scratch. So
Understood.
I would say the biggest thing is determine whether it's worth the sacrifice or not, and realize the sacrifice that you think it's going to be is probably not even close to what it actually will be. There's going to be massive amount of time, energy, eating ramen noodles for years trying to get things to take off. I mean that's the truth.
No, you're telling the truth. You're telling the truth. You got to, the only thing you're gonna bleed. You're gonna bleed, and you're gonna have self-doubt. You're gonna have moments where you have to be willing to persevere through some very trying times. The one thing I did have a question for, and and this is directed kind of a broader base because everybody is now a subject matter expert on the internet. Every time you hear a YouTube video, and I'm not saying that's not in any way, shape, or form when you, but how do people who are looking to take a step in life to step out of their comfort zone not get sucked into that world of, well, this guy or woman on YouTube said that all I have to do is X, Y, and Z and I'll get there, because everybody does it now, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's like all the chat GPT experts, all the AI experts that came out. I mean, within a week,
right.
Where the experts are.
Absolutely.
We were using not publicly available software, but we were using AI back in 2016, 2017 with Newswire Magazine. And I mean, it's very beneficial, but I still, I'll give some tips on it. There is no way that I would ever come out and say, sell a course on AI, a week after the thing launched, going, I know just as much as you do on it. I may have spent more time watching YouTube videos and trying to compile some knowledge. The biggest thing I would say, though, is look for fruit on the tree. You'll see this a lot with success coaches, or I guess that's probably the biggest thing I see with success coaches, doing these events at different, all over the country. People get sucked in where they're going, hey, book publishing companies, it's a fake publisher, some guy that is selling you a service, $3,500 up to, I heard of a guy charging $15,500 to publish a book as a bestseller on Amazon. The biggest thing, look at them, look at their books. Has the guy published 15, 20 books himself that are all actually international bestsellers? Look at the sales rank. Does he have the fruit on the tree? Is he teaching you because he's an expert and already has earned it there and now he's trying to give back? Is there massive profit for him? Where these mindset coaches, mindset and success, where you start researching them, you see they've never started a successful company. They've never lost a company, never lost a multi-million-dollar business. That'll teach you a lot also. Research the guy. And if you can't find anything about him, I'm not the guy, but he's a research person. If you can't find the success and failures that they've had online, it's probably a good sign that they're making their money just by scamming other people out of getting them to pay them for the success mindset or whatever that. And you see guys that are multimillionaires where they're doing this whole thing. I've got an example of that. A young kid that you may know him if you're on social media. I've been on Instagram and Instagram and Facebook for a while. The kid's dad he was in and out of jail, never prison, but in and out of jail for different drug related things. Just had that. He's a good looking young guy. The girls love him, and so he's kind of the partier club kid or whatever.
Yes.
But he went along, had a massive following. So if he was selling drugs, he made a lot of money selling drugs. If he was selling whatever the new trendy energy drink or whatever it was, he's this handsome, good looking kid that's got all the girls following him. So now whatever he's promoting, people are out there buying it.
Consuming it, right. He's an influencer.
And his dad, And so his dad had a buddy, I guess that, the whole family is real well off. The dad's had a buddy that is a multi-millionaire. And told him, hey, you can sell absolutely anything. He was talking about this. I won't say the name of the supplement because I'm not trying to call him out. But
right. Just in general speaking terms, yeah.
But he's come up with all kinds of different stuff like that was not great products, but beautiful marketing. The thing's wrapped up, looks awesome, and he's promoting the heck out of it. And now all the celebrity, he's out, giving out to these other influencer folks. So you see them holding an energy drink can, and looks like he's crushing it. The dad's buddy, he had ended up lost everything again. I mean, didn't have an apartment, was sleeping on a friend's couch. The dad's buddy goes, hey, the kid can sell anything he says sells. The dad's buddy loaned him money to buy a used McLaren, real nice, Lambo type of a looking. I don't know what he spent on it, but bought him a used McLaren, and then bought this gigantic, huge, multi-million-dollar place. A whole bunch of rooms, the infinity pool, all the cool stuff there. And so the kid, the deal was that the dad is saying, the dad's friend was telling him, you become who you surround yourself with. If you can get a bunch of successful guys in the same room, they will automatically network and they'll get their money out of it. So he's charging $10,000 to $15,000 a weekend to have these guys come out to this gigantic mansion. They see the supercar parked out in the front. Within 90 days, he's selling $10,000 to $15,000 per ticket. So you go stay in one of the rooms of this gigantic place. Now they're doing networking. So they're sitting there in the main foyer area, main room. Now got a catered, hired a catering company,
For sure.
come out and serving nice meals and hors d'oeuvres and stuff. So now these other multimillionaire wealthy guys are out there networking, and they're making money off of this by connecting with the other guys. Now he gets up and speaks. So this was part of the package. You get up, speak a couple times, and just giving them some tips on personal branding and building yourself, making yourself known. So he went from literally didn't have the money for an apartment. The dad's buddy loaned him the money for the house and the car, looking like he was successful. This kid has made an insane amount of money selling these mastermind meetings. I mean, it was good for everybody too, but he did not get rich.
Right.
He didn't even own the house or the car because of what he was teaching. That was a buddy
part of the image.
Part of the image.
Right.
And so it wasn't a bad thing. I mean, everybody that went to these events really ended up with some good connections, because people who can afford to spend 10 or 15 grand for a weekend are in a position that they can share knowledge. So it was kind of a cool idea, not something that I would do, but he sold it as, come learn how I became successful. And by having 30 guys in the room that are crushing it, now they shared success. They're going, this meeting was absolutely amazing.
Absolutely. That's wow. That's crazy. That's crazy. But it happened, I think the big thing about it is there are things that are taking place around all the time that you're not aware of, or I'm aware of, because there's a different way to be successful, particularly with the advent of the internet and being able to reach and connect with people. And so I had a couple other questions. It was the online store. And just briefly, do you speak at colleges or schools or anything like that too? I know you're paid, you do a lot of speaking. Do you find yourself, particularly with the younger generation, that are trying to be, they have entrepreneurship classes now in colleges. Have you been invited to some colleges to speak?
I have not. I think that'd be awesome, but no, I have not. I got invited to speak out at a prison recently, at a federal prison.
Oh, wow.
But no, I think it'd be awesome.
Yeah, I figured that would be a decent avenue. Well, I got to tell you, your story is compelling. Your success is very, very something that everybody should aspire to. How's Newswire Magazine going? How's that taking place? I know that you've been in charge of that for the last 5-6 years. Can you talk a little bit about your
I think we're going on 6 years now. Sure, I think we froze up there for a second. What was that?
Sorry about being the CEO of Newswire Magazine.
Yeah, so Newswire Magazine, like I was saying, we'll get on, do a video kind of like this, video call, interview people who are really crushing it. So if you're in a position right now, let me tell you, somebody who should not sign up to be featured in Newswire Magazine or Amazon Fire TV. If you're just trying to get your business started, you're scraping together. I mean, you've got a good idea. You think it'll work, but it's not generating any revenue yet. You're not in a position to start spending paid media. Don't spend money on Google ads, on Facebook ads, on personal branding without a way to convert that into monetization. It is not something I would spend money on. Do the work, get out there, speak, do your Instagram live, whatever the videos are, and just really get to where people know, like, and trust you. As soon as you're at a point where you've got a product, a funnel, whatever it is, a product, service, solution, something that you can sell, you got a landing page for it, and you notice that when people hit that page, some of them convert. Some of them actually end up paying you, whether it's for coaching, consulting, a product, service, software, or whatever. Now, as soon as that starts converting, and it's converting for people who are not friends, family, or neighbor who's trying to help you out, if it's people who just found you on the internet, or if you ran an ad or something and they got there and convert, now start throwing some extra money at it and start boosting up those sales. But don't market like with Newswire Magazine or Amazon Fire TV until you're in a position where you got something to monetize. When you get to that position, now you schedule a meeting with me. You can Google 𝐲𝐸𝐿. You can search Newswire Magazine. If I don't show up on the very first page, very top of Google, I may not know what I'm doing. So use that to filter me out and see if I'm actually legit. Google 𝐸𝐸. If you find me, send me a message, and then we'll schedule an interview where you can start doing where you can get your brand out there.
Okay, no, that was fantastic, and it wasn't for me particularly for that particular question. I just was like, that's really awesome that you're in charge of that, because I get to be the CEO of this multimedia company. Well, I know that obviously your time is very valuable, and I just want to thank you for that. Did you have any questions for me at all?
Man, I am absolutely loving this, which is the randomness of nothing, right? The T.R.O.N podcast.
Yes, it is. Yes.
I love this connection. And what can I do to help you get I'm blown away. Your questions, the quality of the interview. You are I mean, you're doing it as great of an interview as anybody that I've been on with where they've done 200 shows. So what can I do to help you expand?
That makes me feel really good because I feel like I'm going in the right direction. The one thing, all I asked, was an opportunity for your time to pick your brain. It's my job to take the baton and run with it. So some of the things that you told me just briefly of what it's going to take to get this podcast to the next level, I'm going to take that to heart and make sure that I continue to do my research, continue to get quality guests, and start using social media to really get this out there. Because the one thing I always want to do with every guest is thank them for their time, do my research and homework before I get them on there. And more importantly, the Randomness of Nothing was really geared towards talking to subject matter experts in fields of success or high hobbies that they have, so that I can inform an audience that you can do. You got to get it out of your head and put thought to action.
I love that.
And this podcast was that for me because I kept having it in my head.
I love that. Do you have a second for me to give you some, are you cool with me giving you a couple tips on how you can actually monetize this right away? Maybe you already are, but I'll share some stuff. Absolutely. Not directed at you, but what other podcast hosts that I've seen when they've made these changes start making money at it.
No, I appreciate it.
Getting more reach.
That's what the show is for.
Yeah. So now if you're watching this right now, visit TR.ON.podcast.com. That's URL. Are you doing dedicated landing pages for each individual show guest right now?
Yes, I am. Well, it's funny you asked that right now. I'm doing a lot of recording of the episodes so that way I have a bullpen to be able to release them and give everybody that enough time so that way there's a week-by-week release right now. If that's wrong, let me know. But right now, that's the mode that I'm doing it right now by recording each episode individually.
And then how many episodes are you recording weekly right now?
About 3.
That's a lot of work. People that haven't hosted a podcast, there's a whole lot of work that goes into post-production and scheduling and stuff. So 3 podcasts a week is a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm certainly not an editor or a sound editor expert, so I'm kind of figuring it out, freestyling it on my own. So I'm sure there'll be some criticism and some tips to give after they get broadcast and published, but that's
I think you're crushing already. I would recommend, if it was me, you don't need to have a massive backlog unless you expect you've got a major surgery coming up. You've got some kind of maybe you're going on vacation for 90 days out of the country, something like that where you can't post. What I would do is start, once you've got the first few of them edited and stuff, start posting those. But the difference between podcasts who are trying their 100 episodes in, trying to figure out how to monetize, going, man, if I could just get enough traffic, maybe I can start making a few cents per 1,000 impressions on, for selling ads or whatever. The ones that really crush it are like TR.ON.podcast.com/𝐬𝐤McCoy. You've got the guest name. Here's a tip where you could take this episode right now and turn that into traffic that you can monetize. Take this episode. And if you're listening to the T.R.O.N podcast and you're trying to start your own podcast, here's a good thing you can do to start making money off it. Take the episode, upload that, once it's edited, upload that to YouTube. From YouTube, you scroll down to the bottom left under View Transcript. It'll show you where you can, kind of at the bottom of the description, click that. It'll pull up the entire transcription of the episode, every word that was said. Now, it's kind of spelling, punctuation, the names will come out weird sometimes, but you can take that entire vocal transcript, load that into ChatGPT. Even if you don't have the paid version, if you're on the free version of ChatGPT or whatever your AI is, tell it, format this transcript so you write the guest name. You'd say, okay, it's the T.O.O. You spell out your podcast exactly correctly. Interviewing guest name spelled properly. So now say this interview, transcribe this, or take this transcription, add proper spelling, punctuation, and grammar. So now it'll reformat that, write it out as actual good quality text. Then you say, from this transcript, write a 2,000 word, write a article outline for a blog article about this podcast. So now it's going to go through it writes out a nice structured blog article, like the front of a book where they've got your layout there. Then say, use this outline to write a 2,000 word search engine optimized article about this podcast episode. So now it's gonna go through there, and it knows the guest name, it knows the show name, proper spelling, proper punctuation, proper formatting. It's got the different topics that it's picked out. These are the most important thing that you want to cover. So now from those topics, it'll write a completely optimized couple 1,000 word article. So now on your page, you create a custom landing page for each individual podcast. So it'd be TR.ON.podcast.com/𝐬𝐸McCoy, the guest name in there. At the very top, you paste in the YouTube or your URL. So now instead of sending somebody to YouTube to watch your show, you don't control, you don't have anything to do with YouTube. If that's on your page, now they're ending up on your show. You're raising your domain authority and search ranking by having people on the site. So you've got the video at the top, get a couple thousand words, SEO friendly article at the bottom below the show that includes the guest name. So now if somebody's searching, if they're Googling M. Curtis McCoy, like you just did to research, you'll see a few of the podcasts showed up. And those guys that were where you found me were ones where you didn't have to go to mcurtismccoy.com. You Google me, the other podcasts show up. They've got these dedicated pages. So now you've got video at the top, couple thousand word article. People are going through that. Google sees that. Now you are the expert on M. Curtis McCoy or Bob Smith or whoever your guest is. You're the expert on it because they didn't click on that and go, oh, this isn't what I was looking for. They clicked on it and stayed on your page for 2 seconds. They're watching a 20-minute video. They're reading the article. Now, Google, the more people see that, the more that they stay on the page, the higher it ranks. So you're now the expert on that guest. Now you do that with the first couple dozen episodes. Then you add a call to action at the bottom of that. So now your traffic is going through the roof. People are starting to find T.R.O.N podcast or whatever the podcast name is. They're reading those. Now, when you put a call to action at the bottom, where it's click here for whatever your product, service, solution, whatever it is that you're selling. Now, Google's seeing that, and people are reading through. They're like, man, this is an incredible thing. Or even, hey, click here to be booked as a guest on the show. When you get to where you're getting high enough level guests, now you start saying, okay, you've had M. Curtis McCoy, you've had all these different leaders on that are doing paid interviews all over the country, and they're wanting to be seen alongside that other expert. So now you say, okay, here's the fee that you're going to charge to be on the podcast, or maybe you're selling a product, service, solution, software, book, but now you're monetizing that traffic that's actually coming to the page, and you're not worrying about cost per 1,000 impressions, which, I mean, you have to be a whole lot smarter than I am to figure out how to make money off of a CPM advertising.
Right.
But if you own the traffic and you're now the expert, you put whatever you want on there. If it's relevant, people buy it and they see, I just learned a ton of information. So if you're interviewing somebody that's an expert on publishing, maybe you've got an Amazon link there that's got publishing, a how-to publishing guide or something. You start making affiliate commissions off each of those.
And the crazy part about it is what you told me. It's not like you gave me like the secret to Coca-Cola or anything like that. You just have to be willing and able to research it and do the homework out there. Yep. That's the beauty of the internet. It's democratized the learning process. There's not some wizard behind the curtain now where it's like, ooh, this is only for a certain sector group of people. You listen to some people like yourself, and this is all just running in my head at lightning speed. It's there for people who wish to take the opportunity to do it. Right. The success is there for people who wish to. I can't. And this is one of the reasons I did this show was to talk to somebody like you, because I don't have all the answers. And so that's invaluable. And I'm going to take that to heart, because I think to take this to the next level, I need to take some certain steps. And I appreciate that for you. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. I'll send you a link when we get done. Maybe even put it in here. A guy that I just had on the show. I mean, on Newswire Magazine. Mm-hmm. So you go to Newswire. Let me grab this link for you. He's got a deal called Conversational Funnels. We just did a full article in Newswire Magazine and a feature about him. But he had ways to qualify your guests and see if they're, see if something you can monetize. But he had what's called the spider method. So it's 4 internal and 4 external qualifiers.
Oh, wow.
Really, really awesome tip there. But if you go to news-wire.com, just news-wire.com, you can, and then click on the featured articles or the magazine covers. You'll see, actually, here's a spotlight review. You'll see the article there, and really great tips where he actually walks people through the process that we've been using for years. He's doing that as a business, walking people through to help them monetize, even if you've never even launched a podcast yet, how to start from the ground up and start making money.
Well, I think that's the biggest thing is the fear factor, that people have, because, they start and then they get to a certain point where either they quit. Let's just call it for what it is. They quit because I'm not making any money or it's too hard. So I can't thank you enough. I mean, getting you in my 2.5 week, I'm still trying to find words to get, somebody as successful as yourself and willing to share that information with me. So I'm blown away by the opportunity, and I want to thank you personally for it. It's invaluable to me. It really
Appreciate you for making me sound like the big dog.
Thank you very much, Mr. M. Curtis McCoy, and I wish you continued success.
Rashad, I appreciate you, brother. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you.